You didn't have to stay. After the third breach, you should have left me and run.
I know. I stayed anyway. That's gonna keep being true, so you should probably get used to it.
The battle had lasted 11 hours. Kade Varro had been conscious for 9 of them, which was 2 more than he had expected when the third hull breach happened, and the emergency oxygen reserves kicked in with a particular hiss that meant things were worse than the damage report had indicated. He had sealed 2 of the breaches himself, with materials that were not rated for breach repair and a working knowledge of what happened when you ignored that rating. And he had kept the ardent fall flying through an engagement window that his tactical computer had assessed at a 4% survival probability. The tactical computer had been wrong before. He had one hand on the NAV controls and one arm around Princess Saris of the Vel Accord, who had been silent for the last 40 minutes in the specific way of someone conserving energy rather than the more permanent kind of silence, which he had checked on twice and confirmed it was not. Outside the cracked viewport, the remains of what had been a battle were becoming the remains of what had been a fleet. Not his fleet. The Keth Imperial Fleet. 12 vessels that had intercepted them in the outer passage and had, over 11 hours, become 3 vessels, then 1, then debris. The debris drifted past the viewport in the particular slow way of things in space that had recently been moving very fast. "It's over," Saris said against his shoulder. "This part," he said. He had not been assigned to protect her. That was the part of the story that the Imperial Coordinator's office would later have difficulty incorporating into their official account. Kade Varro was a contracted route navigator for the outer passage shipping lanes. Not a soldier, not a diplomatic escort, not anything that should have been in the same sector as a Vel Royal vessel during a clandestine transfer operation. He had been in the same sector because his shipping route ran through it and nobody had told him it was closed, which was an administrative failure that had put him in the right place at a moment when being in the right place mattered considerably. The Vel Royal vessel had been 3 minutes from complete destruction when he had brought the ardent fall alongside it and extended his docking collar. He had done this because there were people on it. That was the entirety of the reasoning. There were people on it and it was going to be destroyed, and he had a ship that was not yet destroyed, and so he had docked. He had not known who was on it until she had come through the docking collar with 2 injured attendants and the expression of someone who had prepared extensively for this possibility and was discovering that preparation and experience were not the same thing. "There are 12 ships," she had said. "I can count," he had said, and started running. The 11 hours in between were a collection of decisions made faster than thought, which was the only way decisions got made when the margin between one outcome and another was measured in seconds. Kade flew the way he navigated, not by the recommended route but by the actual space, the real distances, the gaps that existed between where doctrine said you could go and where physics actually allowed you to go if you were willing to accept the tolerances. The Keth fleet was not willing to accept the tolerances. They were good. They were well equipped. They had 12 ships to his 1 and doctrine on their side. Doctrine, as it turned out, had a ceiling. He went under it. The Imperial Coordinator's vessel found them 4 hours after the last Keth ship went dark. A clean white diplomatic cruiser that looked, after 11 hours in the Ardent Falls battered cockpit, almost aggressively pristine. Coordinator Velshaz came aboard personally. She was tall, gray-robed, with a bearing of someone who managed the intersection of politics and power, and had been doing it long enough to find it unremarkable. She looked at the damage to the Ardent Fall with a professional assessment that lasted approximately 3 seconds. She looked at Kade for longer. "Mr. Varro," she said, "the Empire is prepared to offer you the Accord's highest civilian honor, full contractual immunity for all outer passage navigational violations accrued during this engagement, a financial settlement in the range of—" "I know what the reward is," Kade said. Velshaz paused. "You've been briefed." "No," he said. "But I know how this works. You tell me what it's worth." "Agree. I go back to my routes. The princess goes back to wherever you're taking her. And in 6 months nobody remembers that the reason she's alive is because she happened to dock with a freight navigator who didn't know the sector was closed. Velshaz was quiet for a moment. That is, broadly, the shape of it. What happens to her, he said. After you take her back? That, Velshaz said, with the careful neutrality of someone who had been asked a question they could answer truthfully or diplomatically but not both, is a matter of Vel succession law. Which means, Kade said, she goes back to being the third daughter with no succession claim and no political standing, who someone just tried to eliminate quietly in the outer passage. The coordinator did not answer that. Saris, who had been standing at the back of the cockpit in her torn gold-embroidered dress and had not spoken since Velshaz came aboard, looked at Kade with an expression he could not fully read and had been thinking about for 4 hours. You don't have to do anything, she said. You already did enough. That's not, he stopped. Started again. That's not how I'm calculating it. He turned back to the coordinator. I'm refusing the settlement, he said. I'll take the immunity because I need to keep flying and the violations are legitimate. The honor, the financial offer, no. Mr. Varro, Velshaz said. What exactly are you asking for? A contracted position, he said. Outer passage navigation, with the Ardent Fall as the assigned vessel. Personal escort designation for 1 Vel Royal passenger. Indefinite term. The coordinator looked at him for a long moment. You want to keep flying her routes, she said. I want to keep her routes safe, he said. There's a difference. Someone tried once. They'll try again when they think enough time has passed. And you intend to be there. I intend to be there, he said. Velshaz looked at Saris. Saris looked at Kade. Whatever passed between all three of them in that moment did not make it into the official account that the coordinator's office filed later. It was the kind of thing that doesn't.